We want to address climate change. We're going to have to massively reallocate capital from a high carbon economy to a low carbon future.
How do you get corporations to internalize their direct responsibility, culpability, and kind of the imperative to act around the climate crisis?
We want to address climate change. We're going to have to massively reallocate capital from a high carbon economy to a low carbon future. And making that shift requires the economics to stack up. But it's also having a clear vision of where this is going to go and wanting to be at the leading edge and doing a little bit more work than the average competitor to have an understanding of where are the prices of renewable electricity going and what can we do now that we maybe weren't able to do 3-4 years ago.
What would you say to make a real estate owner understand that same imperative from that reflexive, we don't invest in technology position that most of them start with?
Well, research after research after research shows that if you build an energy efficient building, if you build a building that has no natural gas in it, if you build a building that is physically appealing, your tenants are going to be happier. You're going to be able to realize a better return per square foot because you are leasing a building that is simply a better or a more beautiful building. The other thing that our recent work has very clearly illustrated, and that's more on the residential side than on the commercial side, is the massive impact on residential indoor air quality and therefore on health of eliminating gas out of the built environment.
If you happen to own a commercial asset in Miami, or if you happen to own a home in Northern California, you are imminently experiencing the consequences of the very crisis that your actions or your inactions have wrought. So there's kind of moral or ethical congruency there that you think would have more of an effect.
The first and foremost opportunity here is to get executives across the real estate industry to understand the risks associated with not making the right decisions versus the opportunities of making the right decisions.
It's almost like what I'd rephrase that as is just don't build on the wrong side of history, right? You can't unbuild a building, right? Once it's built, it can become functionally obsolescent much faster than you anticipated.
Yeah. And retrofitting is a hell of a lot harder than getting it right from the start.
But the third vector that seems to be intersecting with the real estate industry is capital markets. Because real estate, a real estate building, a commercial asset, it's just a physically instantiated bond.
When we started our conversations with the financial industry over the last 2 years, 3 years, bank executives were starting to be aware of the ESG risk and the physical asset risk and the transition risk, and were coming to us to say, what are we going to do about it? Realizing that the climate change embedded in their current portfolio often points to 3 or even 4 degrees warming, which essentially makes this planet uninhabitable for humanity. The first step I would recommend every one of your partners and allies in the real estate industry take is to inform themselves, to deeply understand how is the real estate market and how is my industry going to be impacted by climate change, physical risks, transition risks, etc. That's the first step. And once people do that, there's no hiding there anymore, right? Because there is no question about the science. It's all pretty darn crystal clear. So then once they've understood the problem, aligned their own strategy, they can start using their voice externally to be the advocates of the future in the real estate world that we want to see.